Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Esther Wickham. Colorado is experiencing a significant shortage of out of school programs, according to a new report. To talk a little bit more about it, I have here with me Colorado and Michigan reporter Elise Apel. Elise, tell us what's going on with this report.
Thanks for having me on, Esther. Yeah, so this was the fifth annual America After 3 p.m. survey that is conducted by the After School Alliance. And it just went into every state and surveyed parents and on their desire to have their children in after school programs. So in Colorado, the survey found that while parents of nearly 500,000 children, so 463,000 children, want them in after school programs, that 75% of those children are not. So, a very significant number there in Colorado. I think the survey found that in 2025, only 116,000 children were enrolled in an after school program. So this was just a really interesting story looking at the need for more funding to these programs, or what advocates would say is the need for more funding to these programs. And while a really significant number in Colorado, something else that was interesting was that it was actually 2% lower than the national average of 77%. So, super interesting story in Colorado. I was able to talk to some advocates there in the state for these after school programs, and they were able to give me some really good perspective for the story.
Yeah, looking at the out of school programs, could you provide some examples of what, those programs are and how they may be beneficial to students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I'm glad that you used the term out of school programs. I think a lot of times people think of after school programs, but really those could be after school programs. It could be before school programs in a lot of states, but it could even be holiday programs or summer. People forget about the summertime. So
Mhm.
really, this is a broad kind of lots of different programs that you're looking at. This survey specifically looked at after school programs, so kind of the hours between 3 to 5. What are kids doing? I was able to talk to an advocate. She's the director of the Colorado Afterschool Partnership. Basically, her whole job is to get more funding to programs like these. Her name was Kelly Streck. We had a great conversation about these programs. And basically, she told me that they really believe that these programs help keep children safe because oftentimes these kids are maybe left at home without parents while the parents are still at work. And so really they're saying this is should be a priority for lawmakers to continue funding programs like this and expand funding to programs like this. Advocates say that not only does it keep children safe, but it also helps keep them engaged and, uh, it with their peers and in fun activities, outside that school time. So they argue there's a lot of benefits while allowing parents to stay longer at work.
So over time, you said that we've kind of seen this decline, we've kind of seen this shift. Um, Aside from just the funding gap, what other aspects have affected that?
Yeah, so it's super interesting. You would think that over time, as state budgets increase and as more and more funding goes to education programs in these states, that really you would see an expansion in after school programs. But super interestingly, in Colorado, actually, there has been minimal expansion in after school programs since 2004. There's basically the same number of kids in these programs over the past 2 decades. So it's super interesting. And something else that I think is interesting to look at is, and that advocates are concerned about, is these programs received a lot of funding kind of through the COVID era. So they received substantial federal funding, and that funding, as you know, is just dying out now. And so they're starting to get really concerned about what's going to happen to these programs as that funding kind of dwindles. In Colorado, in particular, they actually funded, they had a $3.5 million funding that they approved for after school programs in 2004, but that was only a 3-year program. So Struck really said that her big goal right now is to continue to keep money going into these programs.
Yeah, it's very interesting just to see, not even in this state, but as a whole, so much funding is going into education, but we're just not really seeing that return on investment of not only students participating in these programs, but also test scores. experience within the high school or even higher education system. And yeah, it's interesting to see how she's kind of said she wants to expand the funding for the program. But do we actually think this is going to solve the problem if kids are just simply not showing up and this is taxpayer funded?
Right. Well, and it was interesting too, looking at the survey, is how bipartisan the support for programs like these. Basically, minimal differences between Democrats and Republican parents, that they want these programs funded. So it'll be interesting too to see how that kind of affects funding moving forward. If Republicans will join with Democrats, large usually this is a thing pushed by Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see if Republicans hear from their constituents and end up joining in wanting these programs funded.
Well, Elise, thanks so much for breaking this report down and kind of explaining what's going on. Hopefully, there can be a solution soon and these students can have what they want after school and increase their community and experience with an education. For those that are listening, they can go to thecentersquare.com to read Elise's articles as well as just reporting in general.